guys know that expression?
I don't, but
We pull the heist,
wow.
find the ships, and we make off with the treasure.
With Flynn. And then?
And then we split the take 3 ways, and you and I just disappear. Together, this time.
Why do I get the sense it's not gonna happen?
Until then, he can't know about us.
He's gonna be pissed.
He's gonna be fine. Trust me.
Phew, blimey. Flippin' heck, it's
Yeah.
getting a bit steamy in here. So I'm very interested in the subjects of romance and love in games, and I think it's hard. It's very hard to do. It's hard to do in any kind of storytelling context. This kind of stuff well. I think everyone involved in that scene did a great job. Including kind of cutting away as the kiss begins. It's really hard to do kisses in computer graphics animation.
Sure, that's a good point. Wow.
But it's a pretty charged scene, isn't it?
Like, so mentioning sort of romance in games, I know that you recently gave a talk at a QGCon local about sort of like sex, love, and play in games, called Infinite Love, right?
Yeah. It connects out to an author. Oh, nice work, Brendan.
That was not a sincere remark. Okay. Okay, no, I got this. I mean, a wounded, so obviously it's more difficult. Everyone.
Clearly, yes. But yeah, it's subject matter that I am interested in. So, do you get what's happening now? Drake has been through this huge trauma. He's narrowly escaped with his life, and he keeps fading in and out of consciousness. And we use those lapses of consciousness to do something that has been done quite often in cinema, to travel through time.
Yeah.
To travel back through time to an earlier point in Nathan Drake's life and to show the events of an earlier day.
Like, I sort of want to ask, I guess, how much sort of testing went into, I see that you did a pretty careful balance, right, of sort of like, the cutscenes are relatively short, and then I have a little while to play the game.
Yeah.
Did you find that, like, there was sort of a sweet spot you had to hit between story content, gameplay content?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I think as you make more and more of this style of character action game, you develop your own kind of gut instinct around the pacing. But we would always block stuff in and play test it as quickly as we could to see if our instincts were correct. This is an important moment in the story.
Yeah. I actually recognize that little thing from the loading. Yeah.
Okay. So maybe it's significant, you think?
It's my tip off that it might be.
So it's called a Purba dagger, and it is it's a real kind of historical artifact.
Okay.
I'm going to Google it. And
Wonderful. So we just got a question of what was the thought process behind the death music, which I guess is referring to that sort of tone that you hear, that you just heard when I sort of plummeted to my death after that ill-advised jump.
We won't need them.
well, I
little
guess
insurance,
I
that's all.
suppose it's
They're just museum guards.
a tonal,
We have their patrols
emotional
all mapped
kind of
out.
thing.
Relax.
I can't really speak in
Relax.
detail to the process that went into
Have you
its
ever been in
creation.
Turkish prison, mate? If
We
we get caught,
work
then
with
we'll
an
lock us
amazing
up and throw
composer
away the
called
stuff
Greg
you get. You do
Edmondson
realise
and
that,
a large
You
team
do.
of amazing
Well,
musicians
you
at
may
Sony.
fancy that kind of
Oh,
thing,
I'm
but
going
I
to stop
don't.
talking over the
Can't afford to
cutscene
make
here.
any mistakes.
I always like to
Yeah.
honor the
And we
performances.
won't.
We're here.
Okay, real quick, I'm gonna turn on subtitles. Yeah, that would be considerate to the viewers.
That sounds good.
Okay. Man, it all feels very spy movie. Or heist,
Yeah, I think we were going for a kind of heist movie vibe here. So this Uncharted 2, Among Thieves, starts what we call in media res, which is Latin for in the middle of things, and it's a storytelling technique.
They switch the
Oh,
patrols.
hang on a sec.
Figure it out as we go. We cannot fumble our way through this.
I don't fumble, I improvise.
Oh, is that what you call it?
Yeah, I'm adaptable.
Adaptable.
You cocky bastard.
I really like these characters already. Like, it's been
Oh, thanks.
10 or 15 minutes. I just feel
What
really
did I tell you?
endeared to them
That
already.
passage there is going to take
Right.
us right under the museum.
That's really good
You
to hear.
called it all right.
You need to have a little more faith in me, chum.
Okay, this one here is me.
All right, remember, that tower is our only way into the exhibit. But we can't even get close with those floodlights on.
We've gone over this.
Just make sure you cut the power by the time we reach the second courtyard.
The lights will be out. I'll have the van waiting at the rendezvous point. Just make sure you get your asses out of there in time.
Fair enough.
All right, enough chat. Let's do this.
And I know exactly where this cuts because I play tested it so much.
See you on the other side.
Oh, looking forward to it.
We care about each other. Cute.
You know, there's a saying in film editing that you should cut on the action, and we cut on the action there, and this was a technique that we discovered, I think, during the creation of the first Uncharted game, that if you show the beginning of an action in a cutscene, and then you show the completion of the action in gameplay,
Sure.
people feel that those two things are really connected to
It's
one
interesting.
another.
Like I noticed that even during the scenes where it wasn't like continuous in the timeline, like when you were sort of hopping back and forth like between time, you would have him fall unconscious and then show him wake up in the bed. It's really good.
Yeah, it's interesting because like I feel a lot of people sort of revere Naughty Dog games because they do this really good transition between cinema and gameplay.
Oh,
It's
thanks.
interesting that like that is it's basically that.
Oh,
right?
wait.
It's just this small
This
technique
can't be
that you
right.
do in terms of
Yeah.
how
Must have made a wrong turn
cutscenes
somewhere.
feel as continuous as it is.
Absolutely. I mean, I think
Hey,
it's that kind of
Now, what do you
attention to
bet that
detail
will take us
that
right into the
drew me
boardroom?
to Naughty Dog's games in the first
There.
place.
We're in.
So you were talking
Yeah.
about
In like Flynn.
Yeah. So we started in the middle
Okay.
of the story,
give
actually,
me a
a
boost.
little bit more than halfway through the story, and we saw that playable sequence of stumbling through the snow, eventually finding the Purba dagger, and now we have jumped all the way back into Nathan
comes.
Drake's memories, you could say,
Thanks.
and we're going to play through in real time all of his memories that lead up to the point where he passed out in the snow, clutching the Purba dagger, about to freeze to death, and then, well, we'll see what happens when we get there.
I'm curious, did
or-
you start with the intent of doing that, or was that just sort of like,
Here we go.
how games went, like, you just sort of arrived at it after that?
We had the idea of doing this fairly early on, but we didn't have it at the very beginning of the game. I don't think, anyway. Someone else on the development team might correct me about that.
Okay. So interesting. Like you sort of you started off with maybe like a more linear approach to the story, or a more like chronologically, I guess, faithful. But then you
Yes,
sort of
a more linear approach, because I think when we I think this is correct. When we designed the game, we started out that the game would go from A to B to C to D, to F, and as it is, the game goes from C to A to B to C.
what sort of drove that decision? Was it a matter of sort of starting when it's sort of sizzling and?
Well, I think, we suddenly realized, there's this thing called in media res. We could start in the middle of the story, start at a dramatic really get the audience's attention, kind of dazzle them with the tension, seize the opportunity to teach them in a stealthy way, and then jump back to the beginning of the story and let them play through to catch up. We thought it would be a neat trick, and I think it really works. But I'll tell you how we managed to pull it off. Both of you guys in Intermediate have studied the use of a game design macro, this kind of abstracted game design document where we map out the structure of the game in very simple top-level terms. I think that it was really the use of the game design macro that allowed us to do these kind of structural gymnastics in our game, and that's why I really love now teaching that technique here at USC.
And so really quickly, you just mentioned intermediate, which what is intermediate? Is that something that you teach maybe? Or?
Well, it's funny you should ask, Brendan. Yes, this is a class that I teach with Peter Brinson, who is going to be up next on the live stream, yeah? So Peter is an art game designer. He's an amazing teacher of game design. He's taught me lots and lots of stuff about how to teach game design well. And he and I teach a class called Intermediate Game Design and Production together. And it's a class, as the name suggests, that you kind of take in the middle of your game design education here in the
Once
USC
you're a
Games
sophomore,
program.
junior, sort of had some time to mature, had some time to get a couple projects under your belt.
Yep.
When it's time to get serious.
Preferably a sophomore. We love it if people can get through intermediate when they're a sophomore.
So tell me a little bit more about this idea of a macro, though. So a macro is something where you said that you sort of break things down into a spreadsheet.
Well,
what does it sort of afford you as a designer to be able to do?
It gives you the ability, I think, to zoom out in your view of your game design and to see all of the important structural things about it.
Okay,
Yeah.
very cool.
Yep, yep. It's very hard to navigate a game design document that is as thick as a telephone directory, like some of them used to be in the old days. With a game design macro, you can kind of see your whole game at a glance, and if you want to do something weird, like taking the middle section and moving it to the start,
Sure.
you can start to figure out very quickly all of the implications of doing that.
That's a really good. I think it's just sort of a really good lesson that I don't know, like the way you organize information in front of you is important, and almost sort of affects what you're able to do with it, right? Because when you see it in
Yeah.
sort of small modular chunks, suddenly you think, oh, let's move these around. Real
Yeah.
quick, are we still playing this? Okay. Steven was taking over for me for a while because I'm bad.
Anytime you want me to take over,
You
I
know
love
what?
playing this
I'd
game.
actually love to have Richard. In fact, let's see.
Can I play for
Yeah,
a
let's
bit?
do it. Some
You know-
some designers are famously like just kind of okay at their game. Would you say that you're a pretty good Uncharted player? Or?
No.
Oh, really?
Like one of my main mentors over the last 10 years, Mark Cerny. One of my, I believe that one of my strengths as a game designer is that I'm terrible at games.
Ooh, okay, that is a controversial statement. I'd love to sort of explain a little bit. So you said one of your strengths as a game designer is that you're terrible at games. So
Well,
what
let
in
me
the world does
qualify
that mean?
that a little bit. One of my strengths as a game designer, designing the kind of games that I like to make, which are games that are accessible, that welcome
Yeah.
you in, that allow you to have a great experience in a way on your own terms, on your own timeline, that allow you games that are welcoming and that allow you to have a really good time with them. I think that if you are a little bit sloppy or bad in the way that you play games, then that really helps draw your attention to what can be difficult or challenging. Brendan, did you activate that?
Did I? Okay. Oh, Steve
Okay,
did.
cool.
Got it.
We actually have another question from the chat, which was
Uh-huh.
just which classes do you teach, and are they like available for cinematic arts minors here?
Oh, wow.
That's a good question.
Also,
I
if you want, we can gear up the controller and
Oh,
back to
okay.
Cool.
driving.
We'll hand it back in a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, so I teach intermediate. I've taught that every semester for quite a while. I teach a class called experimental game design, although I'm passing that one over
Yes.
to, it's actually called experimental game topics, and I'm passing that over to the fabulous Bonnie Ruberg for next
Yeah,
semester.
I'm very excited. I'm actually trying to enroll in that. But so you actually and this is all because you actually recently received a promotion. Is that correct?
I did indeed. I've become the associate chair
Associate
of the
chair. What does
of
that mean,
Interactive
Richard?
Media and Games Division. Well, it means that I get a little bit more organizational responsibility. Actually, quite a lot more organizational responsibility. In terms of the kind of things that we have to do to keep our division of the School of Cinematic Arts healthy and happy. So I take a lot of
Right.
meetings with people to work on new initiatives, new opportunities that we might be able to develop, and take on some more of the administrative work
Right.
that goes
Sort of
into
keeping the wheels on the
running
train,
division.
right?
Exactly.
Okay, so Steven's gotten us over to this little cutscene here. And so this is an in-engine cutscene, right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Sort of the distinction there, just you sort of pick out which one you kind of want to grab people's attention for a very long period of time.
And what's practical, what's going to look best, what's going to allow us to flow in and out of gameplay very well. So this is just a...
More than my nose, my friend.
That's a pretty great line.
It's a great line.
Great. Now what? Well, I can disarm it if we can find the junction box.
So this is a small puzzle that I remember my friend and former colleague Neil Druckmann working on in Blockmesh. Are you familiar with the concept of Blockmesh?
Block mesh. No, I've actually never heard that term before.
Have you heard of white boxing or grey
Gray
boxing?
boxing and white boxing, right. Where you
okay.
build some level geometry without any kind of fidelity or even representation, but just have it be sort of the gray boxes, white boxes.
Yeah, although it doesn't necessarily mean that there's no fidelity, that there's no representation. And in actual fact, hey, there's a first treasure. Nice. A quick divergence
Of
away
course.
from... can you go to the treasures? Yeah, brilliant.
Ooh.
So I just wanted to... we can just to pause for a second and talk about the treasure system. The treasure system is something that's very near and dear to my heart. It's a very simple mechanism in the Uncharted games that just adds an extra layer to